Hey guys, Katie Green here with Elisa D, and this is our podcast, Let's Get Therapy. As you know from our previous episode, Elisa D has an advanced degree in psychotherapy and specializes in trauma, PTSD, and addiction. And me, well, I'm just going to be kind of her subject, and I'm an open book when it comes to mental health, and that's what we're here to talk about. So, Elisa D, let's jump right back into episode numero dos.
Numero dos. I want to thank everyone, first of all, for joining us in our first episode. It was really fun. We're excited to continue this journey with you. And so we're going to dive into kind of a heavy topic today because Katie brought up some really important stuff in our last segment that I think we have to circle back to. You know, when I watched everything back, I was like, man, as a therapist, I should not have glossed over this topic so quickly. But I did. So I think it's really, necessary to circle back to it because I think that more people than we know are dealing with this issue. So we want to dive in and talk about suicide.
Yeah.
Suicide is a really big deal. And they say that 50% of people in the US have been affected in some way by suicide. So that tells me if you haven't been directly affected, that means someone you know has been directly affected. So everybody that's listening to this probably knows someone or has been affected by suicide. It's a big deal. Thoughts,
Right.
Katie?
Well, and it's something that we're seeing a lot of right now, especially considering the time that we're in. People are losing everything that they've worked their entire lives for. They're isolated, like we mentioned in the previous episode. And, a lot of people have anxiety and depression. And that's just something that people do. I've been dealing with it since I was a kid. And when you start getting those thoughts going around in your brain and you don't have anybody to talk to, or you're afraid to talk about it, that's when the darkness really overloads.
That's right. So darkness, I think that's an interesting thing that you say, because there's a few different ways that suicidal thoughts will come in. And you're right, depression and anxiety and those intrusive thoughts. And what people will do is, instead of calling them suicidal thoughts, or the actual term is suicidal ideation. I don't know if you've probably
I've heard that. Yeah.
But we'll label them something different, like dark thoughts or scary thoughts or bad thoughts, because it's easier than saying, oh, I'm thinking about killing myself.
Right.
But that's what you're thinking about doing. So I think, if you have somebody, or somebody, or you have struggled with this, let's just call it what it is. You are thinking about ending your life and leaving this planet. And most likely you're thinking about that because your life is feeling so heavy that it's like a relief. It's a relief to think of yourself not here anymore. There's no more pressures. There's no more COVID. There's no more just sad feelings that are probably starting to take over. And so let's just name it. You're thinking about killing yourself. And it's really important, if you, again, have a friend who's dealing with this, to name it. Like, oh, you're thinking about killing yourself. All right. Hey, let's talk about this. Because like I said, I think everybody in the US knows somebody. Right.
No, you're totally right. And I was sharing with you privately, I just had a conversation with a friend who unfortunately is having those, as he called them, dark thoughts.
Right.
Now, a question that I have for you, Elisa, being in your profession and talking to people that go through this, as someone who isn't a professional, having a friend say that to me, I didn't know what do you say? How do you, especially if that person isn't too keen on finding help either?
Right. Well, let's talk about the gender differences too. So men are, I don't have the stat for you, but men are significantly more likely to commit suicide than women. So the reason I bring that up is because men are going to be less likely to ask for help. So as you mentioned with your friend, like he's not reaching out, or they're not reaching out. And so if they're a male, there's good reason for that, because men are supposed to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
You don't cry when you're a man. You pay the bills. You just buck up and get on with your life. In fact, a super interesting statistic is the highest or second highest rate of suicide is actually in Montana. Not
Really?
California. I actually thought it was going to be California. We're really low, which is shocking. But it's
Yeah.
Montana, and I was reading about it, and a lot of it could be just kind of like the lack of resources. There's not a lot of resources for mental health out there, but also just kind of the idea of those traditional gender roles of, this is
Right.
what a man does. They take care of everything. You're stressed, too bad. You shouldn't have anxiety. You shouldn't have depression. You shouldn't be worrying about these things. You should. And then it just becomes too much. And what's the easiest way out?
Suicide.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
I digress. I'm sorry that went.
No, but that's interesting because it actually it's interesting and like kind of a shocker, but when you think about it, it makes total sense because there is this bizarre pressure on men
Yeah.
to be the, emotionless moneymakers, and men have emotions too,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they need to get them out. That's a human thing. That's not a gender thing.
That's a human thing. And then traditionally, we're really, as a society, I think, working on breaking through from a lot of those traditional mindsets, and the idea that you can't talk about how you're feeling, you can't reach out for help, and if you do talk about how you're feeling, you're weak. I mean, I hear that over and over, and I hate to like put that on men, but it's, oh, we don't talk about how we're feeling. I feel like when I can't handle everything that's happening, I'm weak. That's the translation. I'm stressed. Oh, I'm weak. I
That's such a
feel
bad
sad.
translation, though.
No.
Because talking is healthy.
Yes. We need a man on here.
Yeah, we do.
We do. So they
Well,
can talk.
it's just interesting because, as somebody who deals with it, and I know those thoughts. I'm not going to hide that. I know that like weird feeling where every move you make feels wrong, and you can't get your brain to stop. My brain's favorite time to do that is when I lay down to go to bed.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, did I unplug the straightener on Saturday when I used it? Like what? What am I? So I know the brain spiral, but the fact that there is this whole, judgment passed on an entire gender that, oh, you guys can't talk about. We can talk about it, but
Right.
no, you're a bunch of little weaklings if you do. That's just not the case anymore.
No, we have to break free from that, because we can't have men killing themselves
Right.
because they're too stressed and feel like they can't reach out for help. We need men in this world. They're
Yeah.
such an important part of this world. And so if you're a man listening to this, you are important. We need you here.
Yes.
And that is not the answer. However, I do want to just normalize and validate the idea that sometimes suicidal ideation is comforting for people, which sounds really scary. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying like, oh, let's just dwell in that place, let's stay in that place. But if you hear a friend say like, sometimes I just think about jumping in front of a car, don't be alarmed, or at least don't show them that you're alarmed, and just ask them about it. Well, why do you feel like that? Why?
Yeah.
Tell me about why you think life would be easier if you didn't exist, because that's what's happening for them. It is a fantasy. They're fantasizing about the idea of, what would this look like? You and I might fantasize about going to Hawaii,
Right.
but somebody who's under that much pressure fantasizes about, what would it look like if I just didn't have to do all of this? How do I get out of all of this, because it's just coming down too hard on me? So don't freak out if someone tells you that. Stay present with them. Open your mind up to what could be happening for this person, that for some reason it's easier for them to think about not being here rather than being here.
Right. Kind of remain calm.
Remain calm.
Yeah. Because I mean, when I was having that conversation with my friend the other day, obviously, like you said, I was immediately heightened, when the talk of suicide came up. And then I tried to kind of, I can tell, and again, this goes back into that gender role thing. He's a, hardworking blue collar guy. And even the thought of mentioning getting help was like, no, but sometimes that's really necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you can't reach out to an actual therapist, just
Right.
At least telling somebody that loves and cares about you can do wonders.
Absolutely. So one thing you want to help them with is instilling some kind of hope.
Mhm.
because somebody who's thinking along those lines is feeling hopeless. That's a buzzword, right? If you're with a friend or if you're feeling hopeless, or they say like, I'm just really feeling hopeless, you latch onto that word. You need to
Mhm.
hear more about that word. Tell me about why you're feeling hopeless. What's happening for you that you're feeling this way?
Yeah.
That is one of the main things somebody who attempts suicide is able to revisit and go, I was feeling hopeless.
Okay. So that's kind of like a common denominator there.
It is, yeah.
Another kind of question for you along these, I have a lot of questions about this, Elisa,
Yes,
so bear with
do
me.
it.
I was thinking about our kids too right
Mhm.
now, because the internet is such a cruel place full of keyboard warriors, you know, and these kids are, you know, distance learning and getting, you know, on school learning or whatever, spending a lot of time on the computer. And I mean, I've seen several stories recently about, you know, 14, 16-year-olds that have committed suicide, and even committed suicide live on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, this has to be hard, because, you know, when you get behind a keyboard, you're not handling face-to-face conflict at all. And you can just throw out mean stuff that they can't delete.
Yeah.
I'm getting so mad, I'm knocking my computer off my box.
Right?
You know, like, I just wonder that this is just, it's been such a heavy topic for so many people, and it's been on a headline for so long. I don't understand, you know,
Mhm.
especially during COVID,
Mhm. Mhm.
how it's not being talked about more.
Well, yeah, and there's I think with the digital distance, cuz I love that so much. I think with the digital distance, there's a lack of accountability through a
Yeah.
screen. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't have to feel the fact that you might be feeling bad, the fact that I made you feel bad. And so, you know, it's really important for parents to be paying attention, even if your kid is 15, 16. What are they doing on their computer? Parents have got to get involved. I know that it's inconvenient to get involved, but we have to. We have to see what they're doing. How are they treating people? What is happening? Because not only has COVID really removed us from attaching to people in like a normal way, but our culture in general has just become all about digital distance. And
Mhm.
so parents have got to ask questions. They have to look at a browsing history. You have to ask what's happening between you and or their kid and their friends. And it's really important to like ask these hard questions of your kids and pay
You kind of
very
have to
close
be in their
attention.
business a little bit.
You do. You
Yeah.
do. Because I
Fair.
can't even tell you how many kids I've met who are now in like wilderness camp because they've become suicidal. Wilderness camp has become the only answer. The parents don't know what to do. And it all started on the internet. It all started with cyberbullying. It all
Yeah.
started with like getting catfished, you know, like by just some random person. So these young men have these relationships with these beautiful pictures. They don't know
Right.
who it is. And so they're getting into these sexual relationships online, and then these people dump them or tell them they're worthless. And you know, they are abused
Yeah.
through digital distance, and all of that creates a sense of worthlessness and hopelessness in these teens who don't know how to navigate. You don't know how to navigate that. I barely
No.
know how to navigate that.
Well, it's like what we were saying. Growing up is like a sport. It takes practice. I mean, you don't
Yeah,
know how to navigate through life yet. And then now let's go ahead and make everything digital, where you can actually have your heart broken and be abused by someone that you don't even know if they actually exist or not.
exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, what these kids have to navigate these days, it breaks my heart. When I'm working with teens, I'm always shocked as at the level of adult conversation they can have with me. Not because I'm shocked that they're able to articulate or that they're able to form such, you know, great sentences. It's because I can't believe what they know about.
Right.
I'm like,
Very advanced.
why do you know that?
Yeah.
And it's because they have access to everything at their fingertips. And there's
And
no sense of accountability.
No, I mean, no wonder parents are getting overloaded,
Yeah.
kids are feeling hounded.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's why we're talking about suicide, because I mean, all of these, there's so many little elements that can make someone, it's that straw that can break the camel's back.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man.
So, I mean, what some ways to instill hope if you have a friend or yourself, if you're feeling these ways, one little project that you can do is make a hope box. So writing, getting a little box, a little container, and
Mhm.
writing all the things that you hope for, and then all the things that you're grateful for, and putting them in this box. And so then when you're starting to feel hopeless again and worthless and all these things, you start to pull out those little notes that you made at one time when you were feeling hopeful. So
Okay.
it's just something to reflect on. If you do have a male who's not as in touch with their feelings, sitting down with them and doing it with them. Most people will respond. People want to connect.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to be alone in this.
Right.
So sitting down with them and saying, hey, let's write down some things that like instill hope in you or that like you're very grateful for. That's one kind of neat activity to do at
I like
any
that.
age.
Yeah, I like that. And I like how you say that you're not alone in this, because isn't it amazing how something as common as anxiety and depression can make you feel like you are the only person on the planet that's dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I know that feeling when before I kind of got my anxiety under control, which it's still not. It's still very much there. I just have a lot of exercises to kind of suppress it when I start feeling it.
Right.
But once you get into that spiral, getting out of it is so hard. And even being open about it and being able to talk about it like I do, there were still times where I'm like, I've lost it. I've gone completely off the deep end, and I don't even know why my therapist is entertaining listening to this anymore, because this is insane. But and it's
Right.
I'm one of hundreds of clients that she sees a week, and you still
Right.
feel alone.
Right, right. And so it's really important. What you're saying is really important because you're normalizing some of this. Well, we don't want to say like it's normal to feel hopeless. It is normal in the sense that a lot of people are feeling this way. It's a lot of people spiral down this anxiety spiral like you're talking about. So have you gotten adept enough with your anxiety to kind of notice what, like, do you have a sign as to when your anxiety is kind of getting too heightened?
Yeah, I mean, I have physical symptoms.
Yeah.
I the whole nine, the heart racing, the sweaty palms. I get really hot on the back of my neck.
Mm-hmm.
And I get this stomach ache that I can't compare it to anything else, because it's not like a sick. It's just like something terrible is about to happen. I don't know what it is,
It's like
but it's going to
impending
happen.
doom.
Yeah. And so I start to feel those things, but it always starts with just one little thought.
Yes.
You know, I was out at a restaurant and I looked over at somebody and then I realized I knew them later, but I
Uh-huh.
didn't say anything to them. And then all the way home, I'm going, oh my God, they probably think that I'm just a jerk now because I didn't say hi. And when in all actuality, I don't even know if they saw me.
Right. Right.
But it took me all 20 minutes to get home to realize that that person was not going to go home and, paint my face on a voodoo doll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's just one thing, just
It just goes into this place that's unmanageable.
yeah, it's like a web.
It's a web. Yeah, yeah. I love your analogies.
Thank you.
Yeah. Digital distance. The web
The,
of thought.
the web. Growing up's a sport.
But you're right. It does start with a thought, but actually your body will be able to tell you before you're able to identify the thought. So it's really important, like those symptoms that you just identified,
Mhm.
to figure that out. For anyone that's listening, if you struggle with anxiety or depression, figure out what your trigger symptoms are, and
Mhm.
that your body will give you the first sign. And so if you go, oh, the back of my neck is sweaty, wait, what was I just thinking?
Okay,
Oh,
yeah, backtrack a little.
yeah, right. Because your body is a really good indicator of what's going on for you. And then you should be able to connect with whatever thought is making you spiral, because we're so unaware of our thoughts.
Right.
Like they're just kind of come and go, and we're just not paying attention to them. But like you just said, they affect so much of our actions and our feelings. And
Yeah, and your way your body's feeling.
And then if you're feeling all of these different things and you have all these thoughts racing in your head, most likely you're not going to be very nice to the people around you.
Oh no, nope. I'm a snap case.
Right. And
It's
then
just
you're
the
like,
way it is.
why am I being snappy? What's happening? Oh, now you have to do all the work to backtrack into whatever the triggers were. Whereas if you just pay attention to your body, that will tell you first, like, oh, I got to start paying attention to what is happening in here. And you should be able to use some of your techniques to de-escalate yourself. What have you learned to kind of bring yourself down?
Well, first, my absolute 100% must go to is talking about it.
Yeah.
I have the code with the fiance. I just go, I'm feeling anxious. And then we sit down and I start rambling about anything that's on my mind and everything, and, get it out. And then usually the response that I will get from my fiance is like, okay, well, that's silly that you're worried about that. And I'm like, I know, but my brain's doing this, so I can't help it,
Doesn't take it away.
Right. Thank you. Just talk to me. That's always my number one go-to. Number two go-to is finding a way to cool myself down. I have this 40-ounce ice water bottle with me at all times, because when I start to get anxious or get going about something, one of the first things that happens is my blood pressure and my temperature goes up. So I always keep water, and then breathing exercises help me drastically, whatever the word is. They help me a lot. But those are my three go-tos. I used to journal about it, but that actually ended up stressing me out more, to be honest with you, because I'd start writing something down and then I couldn't finish it, and then not finishing it irritated me. So I gave that up. I just do my 10 minutes of self-care journaling, like I mentioned in the last episode, but I don't do any more than that because I can't. But those are my three, I think. But talking about it is a must for me.
It is. And getting some perspective on that thought. So even though your fiance says that's silly, it's still important to get another voice in there.
Yep.
And so then you can think about him going, that's silly. And so you can have not just your own voice that's not being rational. You can have his voice from an outside perspective, really helping you add clarity to what's going on.
Right.
So that,
and like nine times out of 10, I know that it's silly, but I just need that validation that it is silly from somebody else.
Yes.
Because then that makes it seem like way less of a deal to me.
Right. Exactly. Because a lot of people walk away from situations and go, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Regularly. Why did I say that? Why did I act like that? And you know what? I encourage you, if it's possible, to circle back to that person and go, I got to tell you what was happening for me in that moment. Or like, I hate how I acted towards you. I'm so sorry. I might have offended you. Because a lot of it's around like, did I offend the person? What happened?
Right.
And so most people, I have done this a million times in my own life. I go back and I'm like, I'm so sorry, because that's been going on in my head for a little while. And they go, oh, I didn't think twice about it. But being first of all, humbling yourself, going, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to apologize just for the sake of relationship building.
Right.
But then also for yourself to hear from them, like, I didn't think twice about it. And then if they did think twice about it, you guys can work on your relationship and talk through it. So it's always.
Ooh, I lost you there.
We paused. I don't know what we lost.
I don't know. I heard you were talking about circling back and apologizing and humbling yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, and that's something that I do a lot. Well, a lot of whenever I start having kind of like a feeling, geez, why did I say that? Because I am a walking mouth. It's just me. And the people that hang out with me know that now. But if somebody new comes around and I'm firing my mouth off about something and I'm cursing every third word and they're kind of, I'll actually round back and be like, hey, I'm sorry. I know you're getting used to me just
Yeah.
to stop it there, because I know I'm going to go home and be like, Caitlin, what are you doing?
Caitlin.
You know?
Caitlin.
Yeah, Caitlin. I drop that on myself when I'm mad at myself. It used to just be my parents.
Who is that, mom or dad or both of them?
That call me Caitlin.
Yeah, if you're in trouble.
Oh, mostly dad.
Ah,
Caitlin Marie is how I knew I really had stepped in it.
okay.
Yep.
Caitlin Marie. And so isn't it so funny how we go back to whatever our parents did? Not that it's wrong to call you Caitlin Marie, but then that's how we choose to discipline ourselves.
Wow, you know what? You're right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
And I even say it the same way that he like used to. Caitlin Marie. It's like,
of course you do.
ah.
Because you were probably parented decently. And so you're getting some like, oh, I need to add accountability in this situation for myself. That's why parenting, I'm going to go back to that whole teen thing and getting involved in your kid's life. That's why it's so important to get involved, help your kids be accountable for whatever they're doing online, because they
Yes,
need to have a voice to go back to that's rational and will keep them accountable,
absolutely.
which is what you're doing. And so again, I think that ties right into what you're talking about, talking it out with your fiance or someone you trust, because that person's going to add a really important, rational, logical piece to your crazy. I mean,
Right.
we all have a little crazy going on in there. That's not a clinical term. I'm not supposed to be calling people crazy.
But it's a term that everybody knows, and that's not inaccurate. I mean, everybody does have a little dash of crazy.
We do. We do.
And
We
if you
don't
say
have,
you don't, then you're crazy. I was just kidding.
then you're actually crazy.
Right? There
Then
you
it's
go.
true. Yes. So
Mhm.
the other thing, so going back to our big topic of suicide,
Yeah.
that's just really, I think it, we got it. We got to stick with it just for a minute longer. I do want to tie back even more to our safer at home is not always safer at home thing. I was reading on the town hall for the CDC's website, and the director has said that now suicide deaths are outweighing COVID deaths. This is his quote. He did not give a statistic, but this was his quote. So, I mean,
Whoa.
this time I didn't even have that when we were talking previously, but as I decided to do a little more research, knowing what we're going to talk about today, I saw that and I thought, wow, people's
What does that
lives.
what does that tell you about this lockdown culture?
Right. We are really taking away, we're taking away people's lives.
Literally. No, because I mean, you think about the family that may have already even been struggling before all of this. Maybe they're entrepreneurs that have their own business that they've worked their entire lives for and put everything they had into, and now all of a
That's
sudden,
right.
poof, it's
Gone.
gone. No
Mm-hmm.
wonder. That is an unbelievable statement that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you guys, anyone can go read the article for themselves. It's a good article, and it's just a statement he makes. Again, I don't want to say that he's backed it up with any numbers, but I think the fact that he's willing to make the statement, it says a lot. And it says too that we need to pay close attention to what's happening to our friends and family, what's
Yeah.
happening in their lives. Did they lose a business? Did they lose a job? Do they have a family member who's gotten sick from this and has died? Are they all stuck at home together and it's just feeling too overwhelming? Pay attention to what's happening in people around you, their lives,
Right.
because they may be feeling hopeless and they may need to listen to you, or
And
they need you to listen to them.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it doesn't, and for some people that are going, oh gosh, I don't want to, have to spend a bunch of time on the phone or whatever, just even like shooting a text message. I have a small circle of friends, and I every single day send all of them a text message. Good morning, how's it going? What's going on? And it doesn't take me more than 5 minutes, but
That's
it
so
lets them
nice.
know. Well, it lets them know I'm thinking about them.
That's right.
And a couple of them don't have work. One of them's in the middle of a divorce. So there's a lot going on, and just a quick send,
Right.
it
Right.
could make a world of difference.
And then though, I want to ask what happens for you when you choose to do those things?
When I text them, well, I most of the time I get, hey, good morning, love you, or whatever back. But I will tell you that I am the person that I have several people that talk to, because I will listen, and I'm, open about all of this stuff. So when they're stressed or anxious or, going through whatever, I'll listen and give them my advice. But I will tell you, there have been many occasions where I have gotten off the phone and felt my own stress level up here.
Oh yeah.
Because, I'm getting a dump truck backed up with all of that crap coming on to me when I have my own dump truck. Right. So, but then again, I try to remind myself, like, how hard was it for you to be on the phone for 6 minutes and listen to them?
Right, right. And then you have your own self-care routine.
Right.
You have your skills, you have the things that you've put in place. So if you notice that after you've spent some time with a friend who's struggling, that now you feel heavy, you got to implement your self-care.
Yeah.
There is such thing as compassion fatigue. Therapists go to entire trainings on it because
compassion fatigue. So that's just,
it's,
I mean, it is what it is. It
is what it is. It's exactly what it sounds like because of what you just described, right? And therapists aren't very good at taking care of themselves, and they just hear a lot. And
because you're always you're talking about somebody else all the time.
Right, right. So it's really a training on self-care.
Yeah.
More than
we all can use that.
And that's the thing, right? Especially in this pandemic, I'm going back there, but especially in that where we're really trying to be there for each other in new ways, such as through digital distance or a text or a phone call or whatever, you do have to kind of like sandwich those challenging conversations with self-care. I always tell people, if you're going to have a hard conversation with somebody, whether it's a boundaries conversation or whether it's just you knowing you're going to like take on a lot to listen to, sandwich that with self-care. And then
that's a great tip.
Make the plan around your self-care. You put that hard thing right in the middle of the two good things. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, so that the CDC guy, he says suicide deaths are up, and it is partly, it's due to COVID. A lot of it's due to COVID. But if you do have somebody, again, who's experiencing that, another thing you want to do with them is you want to find out if it's going past suicidal ideation. Is this just them fantasizing? Do they have a plan? So that's what I would always ask somebody. Is there a plan in place? Once there's a plan in place, as a mandated reporter, I call 911 most of the time.
Okay.
So you want to ask your friend or family member, is there a plan here? And once they tell you, yeah, there's a plan, then you want to say, well, tell me about your plan. And then see if there's like, so maybe they want to use a gun.
Right.
Well, can you give me your gun? Can I hold your gun for you? Can we put that somewhere that's, can we lock that somewhere and give it to, can we put it somewhere that's out of your way? Is there a way to remove the means from them?
Okay.
You don't want to possess somebody else's gun, but can I do something with that for you so that it's not accessible to you?
Yeah.
Is really important. And then getting a professional involved. If there's a plan, get a professional. Ask them, say, hey, I think we should call 911, or I think should take you to the emergency room. So if there's a plan and a means, you want to get them more help than probably feels comfortable for you, because that's a really scary thing to say, I think we're going to go to the hospital. I'm going to take you. So that's where you want to really check in. Like, does it go past the ideation? And then if it is just ideation and you don't have to go to this other place with them of bringing professionals in, you want to make a plan with them. You want to say like, okay, can you promise me that you're not going to hurt yourself for the next 2 days? And and then they would say, I can promise you that. And then say, okay, we're going to talk in 2 days. And we're going to have a conversation, because that's instilling some hope in them.
That kind of gives them a goal.
They have a short-term goal. Okay, I'm going to talk to Katie in 2 days. That feels really good to me. We're going to check in. I'm going to tell her how she's doing. And then, you don't want to be their therapist. You want to refer them to a therapist. But having those little short-term goals like, okay, hey, let's go for a walk next weekend. Promise me we're going to go for a walk next weekend. Okay, let's do that. You want to instill little pieces of hope into their life so that they have something to look forward to. And on the flip side of that, you have to make sure that you have boundaries around that. You cannot be their one and only.
Okay.
You cannot be their everything, because that is too much on one person. So again, that's when you want to say, hey, I think, why don't we get you a therapist? Why don't you just try it out one time? Or maybe there's a group you can go to, or maybe, you know, just helping them brainstorm around like, what are ways that they can connect with other people? Because that connecting piece is where we're really lacking.
Right. And I think that I've never, I've never called it, but I've heard that the suicide hotline, that they actually have people on there that will try to talk you down a bit in a more immediate sense, when
Yes.
it's not like, oh, well, I'll find help and, you know, go on Tuesday. That's like,
Right.
you can call them right now, right?
Yes, yes. In fact, maybe you can get that up really quick. There is a national suicide hotline
Okay.
that, and we could share the screen really fast. So if you know anybody who is experiencing suicidal thoughts, or any of these things that we've talked about today, there is a national suicide hotline that I think Katie can get up and share the number with you.
Okay. I'm not sure how to do that on here. But
No?
I'm not sure about screen sharing. Hang on. Now I can't type, so we're doing good.
It's okay.
Here we go.
So what we can do too is, if we can't get it up fast enough, we'll put the number at the bottom of our description, so that you can call that number and refer your friend to it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fine. And 911 is also the right resource always. They will come out. I know there's a whole different movement around 911, but 911 will come out and they will assess, and they often bring a social worker with them.
Really? Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every time I've made a referral not a referral, every time I've made that call, I always talk to a social worker.
Okay.
For 5150s or for suicide attempts. So
okay.
You gotta get the professionals involved, and you gotta help instill some hope in that person that's feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
So
it's really an emphasis on how just being there for each other right now is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's a great place to end. I know this was a heavy topic, but I'm really glad we talked about it, because this is so prevalent right now. This isn't just, you know, this thing that's happening secretly somewhere else. It's happening everywhere right now.
Everywhere. And it's affecting, you know, like you said, 50% of the population has been affected or knows someone affected by suicide. I mean, that's huge.
It's huge. It's really huge. So we'll put some links in our description. So if you need extra support, or if you need a place to call, or if you need any referrals to therapists, we've got those too. We have, you know, great resources for you. Not me. I won't be anyone's therapist.
Oh, stop. You're my therapist.
There we go. But there are great therapists out there all over the country, and we can always get a referral going. So, yeah, I think that's our show again. And we want to continue hard topics like this and make them, we want to normalize them. We want to take the stigma away from them, because this is happening.
Lose the stigma. One thing for all of our viewers, listeners, we are all over social media now. We're on Instagram at Let's Get Therapy. We are also on Facebook at Let's Get Therapy. And if you have topics, concerns, questions, or, you know, just want to shoot us a message about maybe something going on in your life, send it to our Facebook page, because we both have it, and one of us will see it and send it to the other, and then we can talk about it on the show. But make sure you guys can come in contact with us on Facebook and Instagram there, because we're an open book, and we're here to help. Yeah. Elisa's here to help. I'm here to bring up all the problems.
Katie's here to help too. She's got great skills, obviously.
I'm here to eat the Oreo is what I'm here
to do. Oreo! I don't think we're going to get away from that.
Nope, never. I won't let us.
Everyone go eat an Oreo, and we will have a new podcast out for you next Monday. Monday's going to be our day, so look for one once a week. And if you have any suggestions, we are open to them, like Katie said. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.